Good evening. You're watching The Urban Debate with me, Avni Raja. Our top focus today. The airfare limits that were imposed in May 2020 amid the pandemic are now being removed effective 31st of August. These upper and lower limit caps were imposed in May 2020 when air travel had just resumed after the lockdown. The upper limit was put in place to ensure that there was no big spike in fares and to protect passengers from being charged exorbitant rates. The lower limit was to ensure that there was no undercutting by airlines as the sector itself was facing tremendous losses due to the pandemic and the lockdown. Now, in addition, the jet fuel prices have been skyrocketing due to the Russia-Ukraine war. In fact, it's nearly doubled over the last 6 months. Now, as a result of all of this, airlines have been demanding that these caps needed to be removed, saying that the limits were hindering a full recovery in the aviation sector. So now, without these bans, airfares will directly and entirely be market-driven. But the big question on our minds, of course, is whether airfares are going to further rise. And while fares have, in fact, been rising for various reasons, we've also seen a slew of glitches on various flights of late, raising the all-important issue of passenger safety. So we're going to talk about all of that. Let me welcome my guests who are joining me this evening on the show. Let's, in fact, say hello to Captain Amit Singh, founder, Safety Matters Foundation, Jitendra Bhargava, former ED of Air India, Sarosh Damania, Aviation Lawyer, and we also have Professor Sriram Khanna, Managing Editor, Consumer Voice Magazine. Thank you, all of you, so much for joining us on the show today. Mr. Jitendra Bhargava, if I can start with you here. Obviously, this has been something that was expected. Airlines have been demanding that these caps really need to go. But in your opinion, what is going to be the direct impact of this in the immediate future?
Apprehending that once the cap is removed on the 31st of August, there'll be a spurt in the airfares because all airlines would say, now that there is no cap, let me fix the fares the way I want it. It doesn't happen that way. As you very rightly said, it will be market-driven. Market will be deciding what kind of fares an airline is in a position to charge. We have intense competition on the domestic sector. A new airline, Akasa, has just joined with additional capacity in the market. The ATF prices are undoubtedly high, as a result of which the fares are higher than what they were 1 year ago. As a consequence of which, a segment of the traveling public is no longer traveling. The load factors in the month of July on all airlines across the board have been 80% or less and not 80% or more as they were in the month of May, clearly indicating that the seats have been going empty on the flights. Once seats are available on a flight, and seats are a perishable commodity, because once a flight takes off, seat has zero value. So airlines are compelled to offer fares which are competitive, which are attractive, which can lure a passenger to travel. So I would absolutely rule out any kind of a possibility where somebody says the fares will see a big spurt. Yes, in the scenario that India registers 20% growth, the load factors are in the region of 90-95%, you will find the fares going up. But that is an incremental fare because you're filling up the last few seats. But it is unlikely to happen at the moment because not only Akasa has added capacity or will add capacity in the next few weeks, it is other airlines also which are going to be adding capacity, barring, of course, SpiceJet. We all know why SpiceJet cannot add. So I can rule out the possibility that, look, passengers would be asked to pay more, but not more than what is really required. Let's look at the financial results of Indigo, because that's the only listed company which has declared results for the April-June quarter, which was a good month otherwise, but ATF prices were high. They have reported a loss of rupees 12 crore per day of operation. Now, if they were really recovering the cost of producing a seat by charging a fare that was legitimate, reasonable, they wouldn't have sustained losses. Clearly, airlines are not in a position to charge a fare that they wish to recover the cost. It is the market which is determining the fares.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. Fair enough. Sarosh Damania, if I can come to you here, obviously we know that Jet will re-enter soon. Akasa Airlines as well is beginning operations, has begun operations, in fact. So obviously this is going to sort of change the entire landscape of the aviation sector as we knew it with this entry of these two airlines now. In light of all of that, how do you think the fares are going to move? Because we have seen, like we were just saying, a significant increase in the fares earlier on.
See, with the price caps being imposed by DGCA were at a time when they were required because of the COVID norms, the airline industry also needed to recover. And there also had to be a protection which had to be given to the passenger also. So the DGCA, to balance the situation, had kept a minimum pricing cap and a maximum pricing cap. That is also to support the growth of the airlines, and also there is no unfair practice or there is no unfair charge which is imposed on the passengers. Now, see, everything after now the pandemic is, of course, it's not gone away, but of course, COVID cases have gone down, travel has increased, everything has become, travel has almost become pre-pandemic levels. Now, of course, the airlines to function, to have a profitability, need to analyze their own costs, need to set their own fares. That is the only way an airline can survive. As we are seeing in the past scenario, or of course, airlines are declaring losses. The Indigo has also declared a loss, which was one of the most profit-making airlines in our country, has also declared a loss. So of course, so they want, the DGCA wants the airline to determine their own fate in finances as is concerned. So they want the airlines to determine the price of ticket. What can the price be as per? Now, of course, ticket prices are always done as per the demand, market demand, travel demand. Now, of course, with the festive seasons which are coming in, Diwali, Navratri, prices are going to go up. And maybe because of this cap going out, maybe airlines might be able to have a good month of maybe charging a little higher. Of course, it is not that great for the passengers, but of course, the people are going to travel. So the DGCA has also understood that we have to open up the market. We cannot control prices. There has to be a leniency, of course. As far as the new airlines are concerned, of course, Jet is coming back with Akasa also starting flights. Now, competition is going to increase, and the competition is going to be beneficial for the passengers because it is going to be healthy competition. Because of the competition is going to be the controlling factor for the prices, because as we all know, Indian aviation market is a very price competitive market. So if one of the airlines is going to charge maybe absurdly high prices, if they are allowed to charge, nobody is going to, maybe, of course, people as a last resort may purchase their ticket, but they will prefer to purchase on an airline which is selling a cheap. So market conditions are also important, and with more airlines coming in, the competition is going to be more healthy. And of course, in the end, passengers will benefit. There will be more seats available. And of course, it should be a win-win situation for the airlines and the passenger both, with the new airlines is coming in.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Captain Amit Singh, I want to come to you, and talk about the recent spurt that we've seen in technical glitches. Because, yes, on one hand, we do know that airlines have been facing a huge amount of losses ever since the pandemic. And then these caps, of course, were imposed. And then, of course, the ATF prices have been skyrocketing. But on the other hand, passenger safety is a big question right now, because there have been a huge slew of glitches that we've seen. SpiceJet, of course, the maximum, but other airlines as well that we've seen.
Third is no compromise with safety. When there is no compromise with safety, then the financial aspect also should not affect safety. Especially if we take the case of SpiceJet, wherein it has been found that they were on cash and carry, and there was shortage of spares due to financial issues. But then they should have made a safety case to the ministry. DGCA is only to regulate the safety aspect. And if they find that safety is being compromised in any way, they will come down heavily, like they have issued a show cause to SpiceJet very rightly. And during COVID, people are not aware that in 2020 that an emergency credit line guarantee scheme was introduced. And soon after that, in the next version, aviation was included in that. Other industries like hotel industry, tourism, etc., other MSMEs were there. But the cap on the borrowing was increased for aviation to up to 500 crores. SpiceJet has already taken a loan of 127 crores, Go Air about 27 crores, and a lot of other smaller Companies have like CAE, FSTC, training organizations, MROs. Everybody has taken a loan. So this loan allocation, the money which comes in primarily has to go towards safety and other important aspects. We have to prioritize. And what we have seen is that this is not being done. So that is where the DGCA has to come in. Coming to the pricing of the tickets, people should also know that there is a price band, and the regulation mandates that the tariffs are published on the website of every airline or on a leading newspaper. So there is a band of pricing about starting, for example, SpiceJet has published on the website band from Delhi to Bombay, the lowest being about 3,500. It is about 25 sections and maximum around 31,000. So they cannot, the job of DGCA is to monitor these pricing, but they cannot control. So they monitor every 15 days to make sure that there is no predatory pricing or cartelization. If there is, then that goes to another agency, CCI, which investigate that if all the airlines are colluding to fix price. So that is the role of DGCA is to monitor the pricing and ensure that every 15 days, but there could be spikes in between. So every 15 days, if DGCA notices that there is a spike and it goes beyond the published tariff, then they need to further take action on the airlines. But certainly money has to be allocated for safety, or if they cannot, then the operations has to be curtailed to ensure safety. These are the two things.
Yes, absolutely. And like you pointed out, there are all of these rules in place. But Professor Khanna, the fact is in the past as well, we have seen, you know, the tickets prices going up during the festive season or during a time when there is a huge rush. But it seems that cartelization, like what, you know, we just heard as well. Do you think that there is now a risk once again of something like that happening? Because we have seen it in the past happen.
You see, I agree with what has been stated on the pricing by Jitendra Bhargava, who has a lifelong experience in Air India. Actually, aggregate demand on a particular sector determines the price. While the advance booking and lower prices may be start at the lower band, but as the airline sees higher number of bookings, they think that the aggregate demand is going to exceed the supply, and they will hike prices as and when they go up on a daily basis. They are full-time people, experts, sitting and watching and ready to put the price up. So the advice for consumers in the festive season is, which is Diwali and Navratras and the Christmas and New Year coming ahead, is book early, at least 3 to 4 weeks in advance, so as to get a good price. If you want to fly close to the date, then you'd better be prepared. But I must also say that there should be a mechanism for price caps, at least to prevent exploitative price caps. I must tell you, once we went to Goa and we changed the flight, the flight, one-way flight from Delhi to Goa was in single digits. But when we cancelled the flight and took another one, the price went 4 times. And that is exploitative. You want to take a good cut, take it. Make profit, but don't exploit. Don't profiteer. Who is going to look after that? It is the job of the DGCA not only to protect passenger safety, but also economic interest of consumers. Because the bulk of the consumers who are flying are from the middle class and the lower middle class. Those who can't afford those prices will go by train. And also don't forget, those who are traveling in 2-tier and first-tier AC are also competing with airlines.
Yes.
And Mr. Gadkari has been boasting that you can take a bus from Delhi to Mumbai in 12 hours. So soon you will have these Volvo buses competing with the airlines. So don't think that it's only airline competing against airlines. It's competing against surface transport. It's competing against all the other modes. So competition is going to play the game. I would like to see every airline making a profit. And we saw this pathetic case of SpiceJet cutting corners on safety and being asked by the regulator, DGCA, for the first time in its life to curtail its flights. Well done, DGCA. You should keep awake and ring the bell and warn everybody when such things happen. So please keep up the good job. And I would like to advise people to ensure that they book in advance, travel ahead with planning. And if they can't plan ahead, be prepared to pay extra prices. And of course, you can make your noise and demand price caps. But I doubt whether you have more influence with the minister and the DGCA than the airlines. I have a feeling that the DGCA and the Ministry of Civil Aviation are subject to regulatory capture by business. They listen. 9 out of 10 visitors to these offices are from the airlines. Perhaps 1 out of 100 represents passenger interest. And they have no representation for passengers to listen to their problems. The demand for airline ombudsman has been put in cold storage for several years, and they don't have anybody in charge to listen to complaints and have them resolved in real time. They have an app, but people who are managing the app are sleeping, and they can't act in real time. They should put full-time officers at every airport to listen to passenger grievances and resolve them on the spot. Who is doing that? The DGCA and the Ministry of Civil Aviation are not protecting consumer interests, I must say, with a heavy heart. And they need to wake up. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. All right, Jitendra Bhargava,
Yes.
just on that point, in terms of where the industry itself stands, because we do know that the industry has faced grave losses, and one after the other, there have been, multiple issues and pressure points for the entire industry. But as a result, somewhere, we're seeing this slew of glitches that keep happening, and it's only a question of one incident that can completely, be catastrophic for the whole thing to go out of hand.
This is primarily because the media overreacts to any incident that takes place with the aviation industry. I'll go back to my era when I was a journalist. The typical headline was, so many passengers had a miraculous escape. Any small incident with an aviation related, and that would be the headline. Please remember, aviation is the safest mode of transportation, number one. If you say the windshield has cracked, the public perception is, oh, the air must be coming into the cockpit and harming the pilot's functional. No, there are multi-layers of windshield. So everything is protected. It's a safe thing. DGCA was right. I think they announced it about 10 days ago, that it was not only Indian carriers that had it, they were also foreign carriers overflying India or operating to India, which also had glitches, technical glitches, etc. Aviation, as we all know, is machine intensive. There are kind of technical issues that happen. But what we have seen in recent, as the SpiceJet is a bad example to be quoted, they had shortage of manpower, the technical staff. They could not position everywhere. They were perhaps cutting corners, etc. And DGCA came in. So you have a complete system in place that if the airline is complacent, not taking the requisite step, not following
Mr. Jitendra Bhargava, if I can interrupt you and I'll allow you to complete, it took a slew of a number of incidents well into the double digits before the DGCA came in and took that strict action. You say it's the media which is trying to, change the perception, but that's not the case. The fact is these are serious incidents that have happened and that needed to be called out, because one catastrophic incident that goes wrong and it can cause so much of disaster.
One can always say, look, there can be a catastrophic incident. And you say, look, they only DGCA reacted after some time. Are you privy to the information that there's a procedure to be followed? You have first instance, a letter goes out. A second incident happens, somebody is called to the DGCA office. Now, these are not running day-to-day running commentary being given by DGCA that this is what we are doing. People who have worked in the industry know the kind of system that is there and how DGCA will come in at the right time. Let's have faith in our regulatory agency. Please remember one thing. At the end of the day, what is our safety track record? It is as good as any other country that we have. Now, the fact is, pilots are trained, engineers are trained, there could be shortfall. Are you aware of the fact that in America and Europe, thousands of flights have been cancelled because either they don't have pilots or they don't have technicians? Passengers have been left in the lurch. They come to the airport, the lines are going outside the terminal building because the check-in staff is not there in adequate quantity. And just compare with the Indian scenario, we are far, far better off. These minor things notwithstanding, the fact is, as one of the participant panelists said very clearly, that, look, we are talking with Mr. Shriram Khanna on the fares. We need to understand, unlike the railways or the buses, we do not have a uniform fare for all seats. And as Shriram Khanna very rightly said, buy early to get the cheapest ticket. Because there are buckets that airlines have, and as the flight gets full, the fares keep increasing. And when we give an instance of the fare being 25,000 rupees, people being fleeced, well, you are buying the last 5 seats on a flight. Don't forget, the 95% of the other passengers got seats at a much cheaper concessional rate. So this is how the average is worked out, and airline operations world over is done on this basis. And you can't say, my first 10 seats will be as costly or as cheap as the last 10 seats. It does not happen that way in the aviation industry. So there's a certain perception, certain clarification, certain understanding that we need to have of the aviation industry, because one, safety, our record is as good as this thing. And we are in the world, we have a regulatory agency which is active. There will be technical glitches. It happens in all industries. The only thing is, everything to do with aviation gets highlighted much more. You mean to say major manufacturing companies do not have technical snacks? They also have technical snacks. But aircraft are built in such a manner that whatever be the problem, there will be a second correction available in the aviation industry. That is why it happens. And the MEL, like airlines use the facility of minimum equipment list and fly off, etc. Well, DGCA has come down heavily on them because they say, look, if it's a repetitive practice, this is not to be done. So let passenger have the requisite confidence in airlines. Fares are high, and on seasonality factor, when there is Diwali time, when there is New Year Eve or a long extended weekend, your airlines are filling up the last few seats. But don't forget the fact that we are not going to see that scenario in the coming months because there is adequate capacity available. Even if the market grows by 10-15% in the next few months, the capacity will absorb and airlines will not be able to fill up 100% of the flight.
All right. Captain Amit Singh, if you would like to come in here and, just respond to that point about these being, minor incidents that need to be brushed aside and not given importance at all.
Not brushed aside. I didn't say brush aside. I said DGCA takes note of it.
No, you said a mountain is being made out of a molehill. In fact, these incidents don't need to be given the kind of attention that it's been given, is what you said, if I can quote your words.
No, I said the DGCA is not giving a running commentary on what they're doing at every stage. Fun incident, a letter is sent out or the official of the airline is summoned. He's sounded on what is corrected. An inspection takes place from the regulatory agency, whether the systems are right, the SOPs are being followed. So what I'm saying is a system is in place. The only thing is, when anything to do with aviation gets into the newspaper,
I agree to that. I agree to that. Yeah. Mr. Bhargava is correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Bhargava is correct, and I'd like to say that I've seen very professional work by the DGCA only in recent years on the safety. But on passenger and quality of services, passenger economic interests, they are sleeping and they are subject to bullying by the airlines, and they don't really react to consumer complaints in the same way as they react to demands of airlines. Okay.
Yes. All right. Professor Shriram Khanna, would you like to come in here?
I'd like to add one comment,
yes,
with your permission.
Yes, please go ahead.
Can I make a short comment? I am looking forward to a day when I hear Mr. Ratan Tata saying that Air India has made a profit. This company never made a profit while Jitendra Bhargava was working for it. But now it is Tata has taken over. I took a flight recently, and I'm sorry to say it felt and it smelled like an Air India public sector flight. That Tata Sons magic has not worked on all the sectors so far, and I do hope that they will turn it around and fill up their seats and make profit and give customers good quality service. So I'd like to see that day when the quarter results of Air India show some profit, and that will be the day when all the airlines will be in profit. That's what I'm willing to see and look forward to. Thank you.
I guess only time will tell whether the Tata magic works for Air India or not. But Professor Shriram Khanna, please go ahead.
Can I?
Okay. So I'd also like to say that the international fares ex-Delhi to almost all destinations are 1.5 to 2x what they were pre-COVID. And I don't really understand why the international fares are so high, even when the traffic is now resumed to pre-COVID levels. Is there any special factor at work? Is it only ATF? Or is it that some sectors have vacant seats and therefore some sectors have low prices and other sectors have high prices? I'd like to hear the comments from the other people on the panel who know more about this than me.
Right. All right. I think Jitendra Bhargava, if you would like to answer that question.
Yeah. Let me explain here. The fares are undoubtedly high. He's very right. They are at times double. And there are two factors to it. One are the ATF prices. Say the non-stop flight, which carries a lot of fuel on flying to the United States from here. The ATF prices, I don't have the July data, but between January 1 and 30th June, they'd gone up by 91%. And fuel accounts for 40 to 45% of the operational cost. That was one. Second factor was that all of the capacity that existed prior to COVID has not yet been reinstated. So you still have a lot of airlines not being able to mount capacity because they do not have adequate number of pilots with them. So they are not operating to the extent that they were operating. So once you have the capacity available, and Air India, you made a mention of it, has just announced that they will be mounting additional capacity on the India-Canada sector because Air Canada has pruned down their frequency, so Air India will come in. Now that's a positive side. Your earlier point, Mr. Shriram Khanna, since you represent the consumers, we must understand that it is not inefficiency, unproductive practices of an airline or lack of an adequate standard of service that makes an airline lose money. Both Jet Airways and Kingfisher were excellent airlines, professionally managed, but they never made profit. Vistara is run by Tata's and Singapore Airlines. It has never made profit. India is a price-sensitive market. All that they're doing is benchmarking the fare against the low-cost airlines who have a much lower cost platform. With the result, full-service carriers are not being able to make money. That's the reality of Indian aviation. You heard the Akasa CEO, Vinay Dubey, say that we are launching our flights and our fares will be 6 to 8% lower than the other airlines. Now, if you look up the travel portal now, Indigo yesterday was 1 rupee higher than Akasa on the Mumbai-Ahmedabad sector. Now, that is how the dynamics of the market operate. It is not that you will add capacity and you can charge whatever fare. Market determines what an airline can be charging, because otherwise, Indigo would have lost it to Akasa if they were not to match the fares.
I tend to agree with your observation.
You know, people give this term because cartelization.
I agree with what you're saying.
When they say
competitive
that all
dynamics will determine the prices.
5-10 rupee band, that it is cartelization, it isn't. You're only matching the fare so that you do not lose out on the market share.
All right. Sarosh Damania, if you would like to weigh in here as well.
See, with the fares going up, and of course, as I also told earlier, everybody agrees the same or concur on the same point that the market determines the fare. But of course, in the end, it is up to the airline. Now, there can be different strategies which the airlines might, now as Akasa Air is a new airline coming in, they might use a penetrative pricing strategy, that is maybe try to price themselves lower. So that is, of course, individual. Each and every airline has their own marketing teams, own sales teams, which, of course, looking into different sets of factors which are there, determine. Of course, air fuel, which is there, of course, everybody has mentioned, is playing one of the major factors which is going to determine the price, and which is always going to be an important factor, which is beyond the control of the airlines. Because ATF is, of course, we don't produce ATF, it is an international price which controls it. So the price is not in control, nor can government do anything to support it, or because the prices are internationally determined. Of course, there is government can only support is mean by maybe some tax waivers or some tax concessions which they can give in to support the airlines, which is also one of the most needed things right now, because of course there are a lot of high taxation also on fuel, which is there, which is aviation fuel. So if maybe government can come in maybe to support the airlines to maybe boost the sector, that is well and good. Something what DGCA and the aviation ministry, which is there, can look into it. So that will also touch, of course, in the end, it will benefit the passengers only, because if the airlines get a lower fuel price, they might price the tickets at a lower rate, and everybody, it will be a win-win situation for everybody. So that is one thing which can be in addition to this come into picture, which will make a change in the aviation sector. That is the taxes.
Okay. Professor Sriram Khanna, in your view, what are the most crucial things right now which are required from a passenger and a consumer point of view in the aviation industry? Captain Amit Singh has highlighted certain issues that he has. What would you like to say?
From the passenger point of view, I'd say you have to be a smart passenger to save money and make your hard-earned money go the extra mile, which means getting the best quality of airline service at the cheapest price. And the only way you can get it in the next 6 months or 1 year in the domestic market and the international market, outward bound, is buying at least 1 month in advance for domestic flights and buying at least 6 to 8 weeks in advance or maybe more in international flights. So please plan your holidays, plan your visits and save money and buy best quality and choose the best seats and have a safe journey. And I'm really proud of my country because it happens to be one of the countries in the world that where you can fly anywhere in India with about $100 per flight, plus minus 10%, which is rarity in many other countries of the world. It is the cheapest market in terms of telecom prices, it's the cheapest in terms of cars, it's the cheapest in terms of food and many other things. It is cheapest because the smart Indian consumers is very price sensitive. I've seen even rich consumers who have high salaries belonging to top brackets of the society. They are also comparing prices and paying 1 rupee less. They are not willing to pay more unless they see the difference in quality. So the consumer in India remains to be smart, informed, and find out which side his bread is buttered. And if companies serve the consumer, they can make money. Otherwise, they won't be able to do it. This is what I think. Thank you.
All right. On that note, we're completely out of time. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us on this debate. On that note, we're going to slip into a very quick break and we'll be back with more.